Hello, this is the luckiest maths teacher in the world. Thank you so much for tuning into this video in which we will look at factorizing quadratic trinomials. It sounds a bit complicated, but it's really not. A quadratic trinomial is just something that has three terms. That's what trinomial means, one of which is an x squared term. So all of these here are trinomials because they have 1, 2, 3 terms, one of which is an x squared term. So we're going to look at how we take an expression like this that has three terms, one of which is an x squared term, and how we factorize it. We want to write it as something times something. So it turns out to do this, we're going to basically undo what we did when we expanded. We're going to undo FOIL. So let's look here and have a quick review of what we did in FOIL. So when we were using FOIL to expand these brackets, we did firsts, so x times x is x squared. Outsides, x times 9. Insides is x times 3. And then last is 3 times 9. And then, of course, remember, if we have like terms, we have to collect them. 9x plus 3x is 12x. So we're left with x squared plus 12x plus 27. So what's going on here? When we expand this using FOIL, note that we have an x squared term, of course. The coefficient of x, though, is just 3 plus 9. And then the constant term is 3 times 9. When we use FOIL, when we expand, the two numbers in the brackets multiply to give this term, and they add together to give this term. So when we're factorizing, we're just going to use that. We're going to do it in reverse. So if we're factorizing, we want to find something times something to give us our expression. So we know that it's going to be x's in each bracket. That's how we got the x squared term. So these x's in the bracket will be accompanied by numbers. What are the two numbers that go in the brackets? Well, we just figured out the two numbers that go here, they add to the coefficient of x, the number in front of x, and they multiply to give the constant term. So we want to find two numbers that multiply to 4 and add to 4 as well. So if you're not sure of what the numbers are, just go through factors of this constant term. Find the factors of the term that has no x's. Well, there aren't that many factors of 4. It's just 1 and 4. Well, they don't add to 4. 2 and 2. They do add to 4. So here it's actually going to be 2 and 2. Positive 2 and positive 2. 2 plus 2 equals 4. 2 times 2 equals 4. You might also see it written like this, x plus 2 squared. Of course, when we factorize, our answer won't always be a perfect square. Let's look at x squared plus 12x plus 35. So we're going to factorize this. So we're going to put an x in each bracket. That's how we get the x squared term when we expand. And that x needs to go with a couple of numbers. So we need to find two numbers that multiply to 35 and add to 12. Well, those two numbers, if you don't know, go through factors of 35. 35 and 1 doesn't add to 12. 7 and 5, well, they do add to 12. So it's going to be plus 7 plus 5. So sometimes your answer will be a perfect square, sometimes not. This is the answer because if we expand this using FOIL, we will get that. We've written x squared plus 12x plus 35 as something times something. So let's look at this example here. So same idea. We have a quadratic trinomial. So we'll set up two brackets. Each has an x. We need to find this time two numbers that multiply to 18. They don't add to 9, they actually add to negative 9. So what are the two numbers that multiply to 18 and add to negative 9? Well, let's just go through factors of 18. So 18 and 1 doesn't work, but 3 and 6, that does work. So we're going to put a 3 and a 6 in here. But this time, it's not going to be positive and positive, because 3 plus 6 doesn't equal 9. They need to both be negative. It's going to be -3 and -6. -3 plus -6 gives -9. -3 times -6 gives you +18. If you were to expand this using FOIL, you would get that. So let's look at this example. These ones are a bit tougher where the constant term is negative. X squared minus x minus 30. It's still a quadratic trinomial. There's 3 terms, one of which is x squared. So we set up our brackets. Okay. Now we need to find 2 numbers that multiply to -30 and they add to this coefficient in the middle. If it's not written, remember it's 1. So the coefficient here of x is actually -1. We need 2 numbers that multiply to -30 and add to -1. So let's go through factors of 30. We need to somehow get to -1. So 1 and 30 won't work. 10 and 3 won't work, 15 and 2 won't work, but we can use 6 and 5. So how are we going to get 6 and 5 to give us -1? Well, if the 6 is negative and the 5 is positive, so -6 plus 5 is -1. -6 times 5 is -30. We're done. What about x squared plus 5x plus 14? Once again, we're going to set up 2 brackets, put an x in each. We need 2 numbers that multiply to -14 and add to 5. So let's look at factors of 14. Well, 14 and 1 won't work, but 7 and 2 will work because their difference is 5. So I'll put a 7 and 2 in each brackets. We need to get to +5. How are we going to get to +5 from 7 and 2? Well, if it's +7 minus 2. 7 minus 2 is 5. 7 times -2 is -14. Once again, I expand this, I would get that. So let's look at the last one. So I mentioned this in a previous video. If you can use highest common factor, do it. If the terms have a common factor, first take out that common factor. See, in the previous one, and in fact in all of these previous examples, there wasn't a common factor. There's nothing that goes into x squared, 5x and -14 other than 1. Even this one, x squared plus 4x plus 4. They don't have a common factor. Sure, 4 goes into the last 2 terms, but it doesn't go into the first one. On the other hand, for this last example, these 3 terms have a common factor. It's not 10, even though 10 goes in the last 2 terms, it doesn't go in the first 2 terms. The thing that goes into 2x squared, -20x, and 50 is 2. 2 is the highest common factor. So if I write 2 out the front, 2 times x squared gives 2x squared. 2 times -10x gives -20x, and it's 2 times 25 that gives you 50. So I've taken out a common factor. So now I have a quadratic trinomial, and I'm going to factorize it as I did each of the previous examples. So always take out a common factor if there is one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, in my next line, leave the 2 alone, and I'm just going to factorize what's in the brackets, what's underlined here. So to factorize just this part, I need to find 2 numbers that multiply to 25 and add not to 10, but to -10. So the factors of 25 that can get me to 10 are, of course, 5 and 5. 5 times 5 is 25. 5 plus 5 is 10. But I want them to add to -10, so I'm just going to make them both a minus. Because -5 times -5 is 25, -5 plus -5 is -10, and then we're done. Alright, thank you so much for tuning into this video. This has been the luckiest maths teacher in the world. Have a great day.